Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be using a tier list to rank the greatest defensive boxers of all time. Let's get into it. So it's always a good day when I'm making a tier list. I really enjoy making the tier lists. I really appreciate everybody watching. So many more boxing content, so many more sports content to be posting in the future. So what determines a good defensive boxer? There's so many things. Speed, IQ, how you do in the inside, how you do on the ropes, how you do in the corner, okay, how you do in the clinch. Your chin, people can confuse that a lot with defense. I have George Foreman on here, for example. Even though he had an incredible chin and he was an incredible boxer, one of the best heavyweights of all time, his defense wasn't that good. All right, had a lot of punches land on him. That's not good defense. All right, now of course you could still be a great boxer without having the best defense, but once again, this focuses on just defensive boxers only. I included some of the best, of course. I included the greatest defensive boxers, I believe. I included some popular boxers who were known to have terrible defense, and I also included some good champions who were just really good boxers, but defense was iffy. So let's get right into it. S tier, right off the bat. Let's do it. And Floyd Mayweather is S tier. In my opinion, okay, I think Floyd Mayweather is the greatest defensive boxer of all time, right off the bat. And, people are going to hate that. And that's okay. People are going to call him a runner and everything. But you look at his career 50 and 0, took three, four, less than five really hard punches in his career. Okay. Out of the 50 fights, he doesn't get hit. He does not get hit. Incredible IQ that he has, incredible defense. He does the Philly shell the best way. I mean, he's the perfect example who to look for when it comes to the Philly shell. He's the best defensive boxer of all time. Faced so many great champions, so many hard punchers, so many smart punchers, so many fast punchers, and great defense. We saw how he did against Manny Pacquiao. Even though they were older, we saw that masterclass in defense. Every single fight, Floyd just shows amazing defense. Never officially hit the canvas once. You could argue that he hit the canvas against Zab Judah, but officially he never hit the canvas. And the way he adjusts is incredible. He'll get hit with a hard shot like he did with Shane Mosley, probably the hardest he ever got hit in his life, comes back and ends up winning the fight because he adjusts. He makes the adjustments to fix his defense. He makes his adjustments to defend, on a different way that he thought he would going into the ring. So S tier, 100% for Floyd Mayweather. Another S tier is Pernell Whitaker. And these two boxers are usually what people debate about nowadays is who's the better defensive boxer of all time, Pernell Whitaker or Floyd Mayweather. You could argue that they're 1A and 1B. I give Floyd the edge. I think Floyd, once again, is the greatest defensive boxer of all time. But before Floyd, there was Pernell Whitaker, and he was the best defensive boxer of all time. So I definitely believe he's S tier. Then the third S tier fighter is Willie Pep. So before Floyd, that was Whitaker. Before Whitaker, it was Willie Pep for a while. Okay, so the gap between Whitaker and Mayweather was very, very small. I mean, they even fought in the same eras at a time. The gap was very small. Willie Pep, he held that great defensive style, best defensive fighter for decades. At 241 career fights, okay, only 11 losses. 11 losses out of 241 fights. He lost 6 by knockout, 5 by decision. He even had a fight where he had a no punch round, okay? That means he went a whole round without even throwing a punch, and he still won the round. Now we'll revisit the S tier. We'll start going through some other boxers, but as I start to pick out more boxers, narrow it down, then maybe, hey, I'll bump it back up to S tier. But those three right off the bat, I'd say Floyd, Whitaker, and Willie Pep, S tier. Now let's do some D tiers. Okay, so some popular fighters over the years that were just popular champions, good fighters, but they're just known for the bad defense. And you got to include a D tier when you're doing a tier list. So I'd say, here we go. Deontay Wilder. So Deontay Wilder, incredible power, one of the hardest punchers of all time. You can make the case he has the best right hand of all time, but his defense was absolute trash. No footwork, no speed, no conditioning, no IQ. I mean, he went in there to end the fight as soon as possible. And hey, that's a style. He made millions of dollars. He won championships. He had great fights, big fights. But when it comes to defense, absolutely D tier. The thing that held Deontay Wilder back was the defense and the footwork. Imagine he took it serious. He never wanted to jump rope. He never wanted to go running. Imagine if he did. He'd be unstoppable. He would have beat Tyson Fury. I honestly believe he would have beat Anthony Joshua. He would have went down as one of the better, greater heavyweights of all time. The thing that held him back was he didn't want to work on his defense. He just stands still. He faced a very skillful fighter like Tyson Fury. He loses 2 out of the 3. And of course, the third one, which was the first fight, it was a draw. Already now he just went downhill. lost to Zhang, lost to Parker, got outpointed by Parker. He relied on his power so much that he neglected his defense, and because of that, he's a D tier when it comes to defense. I included him on here because he's one of the probably the worst champions of all time when it comes to defense. And then probably the last D tier would be Amir Khan. I mean, we all know he has a glass chin, but like I mentioned with the chin already, having a weak chin or a good chin doesn't necessarily mean you're a good or bad boxer. But okay, 6 losses, 5 by knockout already. Main reason why is he stands there and he gets a little too aggressive and he lets his hands drop, his chin exposed, way too many fights. I wanted to include Amir Khan and just put him at D tier. All right, now let's go around now just and pick some random guys. I'll do Canelo. We'll do Canelo. So Canelo, his defense in his earlier years was bad. That makes sense, right? Young, got to learn more. He got exposed against Floyd Mayweather, but that's not necessarily a diss, right? Floyd Mayweather being the best defensive boxer of all time, but not only that, but also being very smart on offense, making Canelo miss. After that loss, Canelo took that to heart. He really, really trained when it came to defense. His head movement definitely increased. But now, as his later years, even though he's still champion, he's starting to lose a little bit of that. Credible chin, great head movement, never got knocked out, never hit the canvas. I wouldn't say he's S tier, but that defense definitely improved over the years. Doesn't take too many shots, but I'd say he gets punches landed on him a lot, but he doesn't take too many hard shots. He gets out of the way. This is hard. I might have to go B tier. Early in his career, his defense was pretty bad. It's starting to get much better. Very, very close to A though for Canelo. Manny Pacquiao. So he had his moments. Alrighty, the Floyd fight, he got tagged a lot. Juan Manuel Marquez. All right, open shot like that, timed it perfect. Manny got a little too aggressive, and he got knocked out cold. So that's something to consider. Manny Pacquiao was also knocked down many times in his career, lost fights in his career, all throughout his career. I'd say B tier for Manny Pacquiao also. Ezra Charles, so his defense was actually very good. He had a style where he'd lean to the right a bit and counterpunch. You can even include counterpunching as a part of a defensive tactic. I use my counterpunching as my defense a lot when I box and I spar in the ring. So because of that, because of his incredible counterpunching, one of the best counterpunchers of all time, and a solid defensive fighter of all time. Ezra Charles, A tier. And since we're speaking about Ezra Charles, a big fan of Ezra Charles was James Toney. This is very, very close. A tier or S tier. But here's the thing with James Toney. He took a lot of punishment though still. He had a good chin. Early in his career, incredible defense. Very slick fighter. Took some more damage later on in his career. I mean, you hear him speak, it's kind of sad. He took a lot of punishment, took a lot of damage. Still had a very solid chin, but once again, a chin does not determine good defense. Alrighty. So A tier for James Toney. Very, very slick fighter, but that changed as he got higher up in the divisions. Another thing to know what James Toney is, like I get it, many people might put him at S, but when he was in his prime, I mean, he lost like every round to Roy Jones Jr. If you had good defense, if you had that S tier defense, you wouldn't let that happen. George Foreman. So this goes back earlier. Just because you have a good chin, I keep mentioning that. Just because you have a good chin doesn't mean you have good defense, but he's similar to Deontay Wilder. Now, obviously, George will destroy Deontay Wilder. George has better defense than Deontay Wilder, but George took a lot of shots in his career. Great chin, but took a lot of shots. Really wasn't the best defense. His defense was his chin. All right, take punches, do the cross arm technique. It wasn't really the best. Still better than Deontay Wilder, not better enough than B. So I'm going to say C tier when it comes to George Foreman's defense. Mike Tyson. People are going to think, oh, he's definitely S tier right away. I say B tier for Mike Tyson. Incredible bob and weave style, but he also got tagged a lot. It didn't work later on in his career. That we saw with Lennox Lewis, as we saw with Evander Holyfield twice. His bob and weave was definitely fun, definitely good, definitely useful early in his career when he was fighting lower tier guys. But I always say this. I mean, Mike Tyson never beat an A tier or maybe even a B tier heavyweight of all time if you do all the heavyweights. All right. The guys that he beat were C tier. Larry Holmes ain't C tier, but at that time, he was old. He was washed. I mean, at that time, Larry Holmes was B tier heavyweight when Mike Tyson beat him. All time, Larry Holmes is A tier. But when Mike Tyson beat him, he's B tier. Michael Spinks, B tier at the time. Burbick. All the guys that Mike Tyson beat when he was in his prime were not that good. I'm sorry. Muhammad Ali. So he took a lot of punishment throughout his career, but he was very, very fast. Incredible speed for a heavyweight. His chin wasn't terrible either. He took a lot of shots and definitely a good counterpuncher also. Very fast, though, like I mentioned, circled around, which I loved about him. Good jab, good counterpunching with the jab. I'm going to say A tier for Muhammad Ali. Sugar Ray Robinson, another A tier boxer. Didn't hit the canvas too many times, had a lot of fights, didn't lose too many times either. Good defensive boxer. Sugar Ray Robinson was A tier for him. Winky Wright. Okay, this might be an S tier. This might be an S tier. Nobody did the high guard better than Winky Wright did. People consider him a top five defensive fighter of all time. I mean, he did it good, never got knocked out. Alrighty, so obviously he used that high guard to his advantage, so it wasn't getting tagged much. Winky Wright's a very, very underrated boxer, believe it or not. His defense is incredible. Winky Wright might make the case for S tier. But that might be crazy though, putting on the level of Floyd, Willie Pep, and Pernell Whitaker. I'm gonna go S tier, dude. That high guard was so good. I'm fine with putting Winky Wright at S tier. If anybody wants to argue me down in the comments, let me know. Maybe it'll change my mind. Maybe I'll change your mind. But I honestly believe Winky Wright was S tier defensive boxer. That high guard was incredible. He did it so good. Roy Jones Jr., I'd say A tier, very slick fighter. He had another no punch round against Vinny Paz Yenza, so that was definitely impressive as he went on later on in his career. His defense slows down. You can say the same with all these guys, but in his prime, Roy Jones is very, very slick. He did it in a way that other fighters didn't. Drops his hands, tries to bait the guys in. He did against James Toney, dropped his hands, tried to bait James Toney in, and he ended up knocking down James Toney when he did that. So A tier defense for Roy Jones Jr. I have to put Andre Ward at A tier. Andre Ward was a very, very smart fighter, another good counter puncher, never lost. All right, did get knocked down, but like I said, never lost, faced them good fighters later on in his career. I'm gonna go A tier for Andre Ward. Tyson Fury, I'm gonna go B tier. So he's a very fast heavyweight, especially for his size. Definitely the fastest heavyweight out there right now. Even faster than Usyk. Usyk's more skilled, but Tyson Fury is definitely more faster. Tyson Fury hit the canvas a lot because he got lazy, didn't get his head out of the way. We saw him get tagged. We saw him get shook against Usyk. It was a knockdown, a standing 8 count he got, but Tyson Fury's defense not bad enough for C because he gets out of the way. He moves around, good head movement. Not bad enough for D either, but not good enough for A and S. So Tyson Fury B tier. I'm gonna go B tier for Roberto Duran. Also, he was better with defense. From time to time, he showed good defense against around Barkley, but we saw him get knocked out against Thomas Hearns. We saw him lose those rounds easily to Marvin Hagler, quit against Sugar Ray Leonard. But, his defense definitely good on the inside because Roberto Duran was a good inside fighter, but overall, I put him at B tier. Sugar Ray Leonard, B or A? I think of the fights that, the close fights he had with Thomas Hearns, Roberto Duran, Marvin Hagler. Okay, other fights. But he was a very fast boxer, very speed, got in and out. I gotta go A tier for Sugar Ray Leonard. Juan Manuel Marquez, I wanted to include him on here. I thought he was a good fighter. I thought he was a good defensive boxer. I want to put him at B tier. I want to put Bernard Hopkins at A tier. One of the most technical and smartest fighters of all time. Definitely on the technical side. Very technical fighter. Had great technique. In his middleweight days, in his prime, incredible defense. Later on, started to slow down a bit, started to get tagged more, but in his prime, Bernard Hopkins was the A tier defensive boxer. And you thought we were done with the S tier? No. Let me mention a guy named Nicolino Loche, one of the finest defensive boxers of all time. Not really talked about enough, but he is 100% S tier defensive boxer. 117 wins, only 4 losses. His nickname was the Untouchable. He made fighters quit because they got frustrated by not being able to touch him. And of course, he was the world junior welterweight champion for a couple years also. So definitely Loche, S tier for him. Wilfred Benitez, A tier for him. I mean, he's also a slick fighter, one of the best defensive boxers of all time. So, you could include him in the Fab Five. Good, fast, skillful fighter, A tier for Benitez. And last is Terrence Crawford. I'll put him at A tier also because here's the thing. Alrighty, I mean, his competition is starting to get much better now, believe it or not, later on in his career. But the way he fights, I mean, he fights in 2 stances. Very smart fighter, incredible defense. Never got knocked down. You could argue he got that knockdown on that one fight. I don't even pronounce the name, but wasn't official. But either way, Terrence Crawford, definitely A tier defense, whether you like it or not. If he wanted to fight more than once a year, I mean, you could even argue that he could be in the S tier. Because he fights once a year. He doesn't really show off his defense abilities enough, but his adjustments also like Floyd. The fact that he's able to switch stances like Marvin Hagler did, definitely enough to put him at A tier. Well, everybody, that is my tier list. I really hope you enjoyed my defensive boxer tier list, the greatest defensive boxers of all time. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. If you agree or disagree, I want to hear it. Maybe you'll change my mind. Maybe I'll change your mind. Maybe you want to bump some guys up. Maybe you want to bump some guys down. Maybe you want to bump Canelo up to A tier. Maybe you want to bump Roberto Duran up to A tier. Maybe you want to knock down Winky Wright. Who knows? Let me know down in the comments. I really appreciate you guys always watching. Though I really enjoy doing these. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. I'm out, guys. Peace.